Welcome to Dare a New Belief, a place to discover what is possible for your life after the loss of a loved one, and where you will find inspiration, insight, support, and love, and hopefully a bit of laughter to help you through your day. Now, here's your host, Nada Hogan.
Welcome to Dare a New Belief, where you will find light and life, love and joy, healing, faith, and hope. A place where you get to believe in what is possible for your life. On last week's show, I had the deep and great honor to have Judy Jonna with us. And in case you didn't hear part one, you'll want to go back and listen to part one and catch up with what's happening in part two. But Judy is a certified energy touch practitioner and sound vibration healer, and practices in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. Loving the work that she does, Judy also loves learning how the divine within us can help us heal our own bodies, souls, and spirits. And that is what she passes on to her clients. Judy's passions are, in this order: God, family, healing work, nature, and friends. And although Judy's journey of healing started later in life, she has never looked back and couldn't be happier. To know herself through her own eyes rather than through the eyes of others has been an absolute gift to her. And so she continues down the road of self-discovery to learn all that the universe offers, which she, in turn, can use to teach and help others. And after hearing part one and hearing your story, Judy, people can absolutely 100% understand why these words are so powerful and so true. Thank you so much for joining us again, Judy. Oh my goodness, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back. It's very cathartic to tell the story and to talk about it. It's been a long time, so I appreciate it.
Oh. Well, and I feel even more honored because of that. And isn't it just amazing how when we can share that story again and even after long periods of time, how it is cathartic. It's so, it brings me right back to these words where it is how you love learning how the divine within us can help us heal our own bodies, souls, and spirits. I just always come back to that because it just sounds like everything that happened with your son, Jeffrey, and everything that you experienced and what your family experienced, that is just such a pillar, a foundation to everything in your life. And, oh, my goodness, you just have the most heart-wrenching story and beautiful blessings that have come through that. So, again, listeners, if you didn't hear part one, please go back to hear the full detail because Judy articulates it in such a heartfelt, beautiful way, the trauma that happened with her son, Jeffrey. And now we're picking up on where Jeffrey is now, and the trauma happened when Jeffrey was 4 years old. He got caught underneath a garage door, and unable to lift it up. It wasn't, you couldn't push the button and it didn't go up. It took I would imagine some adrenaline strength for these teenagers that just happened by to help lift that door up. And it caused some physical and mental disabilities with Jeffrey. And now I'll circle back and ask many questions about part one. But you were speaking, when we left off, Judy, you were speaking about, was it your sister or your sister-in-law that told you that Jeffrey is so happy and he's always smiling? And that God makes all of us so different, and that we don't all have to be happy in the same way. And that was the thing that really helped to allow you to start healing. Was that your sister or sister-in-law?
Yes, it was my sister. My sister, yeah.
Your sister. Okay. So can you take us from that? So your sister said to you, we don't all have to be happy in the same way. And God makes all of us so different. And I know that you live by this. What happened after your sister shared that with you? How did that help you on your healing journey?
Well, that's when I stopped questioning why. All right, why, God? Why did this happen? I stopped questioning that. And that was huge for me, because as long as I kept questioning why this happened to Jeffrey, to our family, to our kids, to, the baby, to everybody, as long as I kept questioning that, I was never going to be able to move forward and start healing. And I think that it was a time I realized I had to stop being a victim and start living our lives with our family the way Jeffrey is, and he can be happy. It'll be different than the other three, but he'll still be a happy kid. So it was funny because I always, during those first years after the accident, I always thought, when we were in the hospital with Jeffrey, it was actually easier than being home, because you saw all of the trauma and things that other people were going through. And I felt lucky at the time. My son was eating and he was breathing on his own, and he wasn't on any machines, and he didn't have a chronic disease that was killing him or anything like that. So in the hospital, I felt more protected, more at ease. And then when you come home and you see all the other kids playing outside and riding their bikes and going to school on the school bus, then it made me feel worse. And then that's when I started just being the victim. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? And so when Doreen said that to me, and I realized that I had to move forward and stop being a victim and keep my family from feeling victimized by this trauma, and stop feeling guilty about it, that it happened, it was an accident, it wasn't anybody's fault, it wasn't intentional. That's when I could come to grips with it, and I started living life again. I started living my own life. So she said that to me. The baby at the time, Brianna, had just started school full time. She was in first grade, and I actually chose to get a job and go back to work. It was part time. I worked for my local congressman in the campaign office, doing financial work. And he was extremely understanding of my situation. He knew that there were times when I would have to run out at the drop of a hat. And he knew I could only work so many hours in a week, but it was like a whole new life for me, outside of being home, just trying to take care of Jeffrey, trying to see what improvements we could make, trying all kinds of alternative healing things for him. And now I was more, I don't know what normal is, but it was a more normal life for our family. It was hectic because I was working and still coming home and trying to do everything, but I worked for a wonderful man. The other staff members were just amazing and very willing to pick up, if I had to leave that day for some reason, I had to pick up Jeffrey from school. They were always very willing to pitch in and help out. So that was a blessing for me. I did that for 4 years, and it was a part-time job. So it worked out really well for me. The other kids were getting on with their schooling too. Heather was heading into high school. She was an amazing young athlete, played tennis and softball. And Joey was very active also in sports, and they played instruments. So we were finally managing to get them back on track with all of their activities in their school, and making them feel like there was someone in the family besides their brother Jeffrey, who was getting pretty much all of my attention all day long for many years.
Right.
So,
right. So for your kids, when they were younger and you were taking Jeffrey for all of the therapies, and so this is mostly about Heather and your other son. Did it ever feel like they were resentful or jealous that Jeffrey, for lack of a better phrase, was taking time away from them because you were having to take Jeffrey to different therapies? Or did that not happen?
No, I think it did. They never said it out loud, at least not to me. They may have said it to somebody else. But again, having that support system of big, large family. Frank's family was great. My family was great. My mom was still alive at the time and helped so much. She always, when I was taking Jeffrey back and forth a lot, if Bree was sick and not feeling well or something, and I didn't want to take her to the therapy with Jeffrey, she would watch her for me. And so there was a huge support system, and the kids felt that love from the family, the older two. They did have therapy one time. There was, we were trying to teach Jeffrey to communicate using an augmentative communication device at the time. Things were not touchscreen like they are now. So back then, we had all these different devices we kept trying, and we would take them back and try a different one. And then there was this camp called Talking with Technology. And it was for kids that were nonverbal, that were learning to use technology to communicate, and for their siblings. And so we take them all to this camp in Colorado. We drop them off. My mom, the little one, didn't go, just the older two, and Jeffrey, of course. And, we told them, there's going to be tennis and hiking and canoeing and all this great stuff. Look at all the stuff you guys are going to do when you're there, because they didn't really want to go. And we made them go. Yeah. So we get there. The whitewater raft trip was canceled because the sponsor backed out. The tennis courts were not working. They were all flooded or something cracked or something. I mean, everything, it was, they were begging us not to leave them there. They were begging us not to. Was, I know, it's funny now I'm laughing, but in hindsight, I can do that. But at the time, it broke our hearts to leave them there because they didn't want to go in the first place. All the activities we told them they were going to have, they didn't have. Anyhow, they were calling us. We were in a hotel nearby. They were calling us every day. Please pick us up. Please pick us up. We don't like it here. And how's Jeffrey doing? Well, Jeffrey all he does is eat French fries and ketchup. He's not really learning anything. So now we're really wondering, okay, did we do the right thing?
Oh, no, right.
Anyhow, I said to them on the third day they called, I said, listen, tomorrow after the day is done, you guys call me. And if you're still really unhappy, I'll come and get you. So they had a overnight camping trip for just the siblings. And that was a turning point in this trip for them. And I don't know what the counselors did. Well, they camped, they hiked, they took all their stuff with them on their backs, their tents, their food and everything. And that night at the campfire, they talked, all these siblings together of disabled children, all the siblings talked, they said for 4 or 5 hours, and they just let it all out. And these were kids that could understand what the other kids were going through because they all had siblings with a disability. And that was a huge turning point for Heather and Joey, that somebody understood what they were going through, because their friends certainly didn't. And even though the family helped and was supportive, nobody really understood as siblings what they were going through. And so that camping trip, that overnight camping trip where they met dozens of other kids that were going through the same thing they were going through, was very healing for them, very healing. And then they didn't want to leave. They loved it. They were like mini camp counselors. They all got to know each other and and each other's siblings, the disabled siblings all got to know the non-disabled siblings. It was just ended up to be one of the most wonderful experiences for the kids. Didn't start out well, but it ended very well. So they did have a lot of. I'm sorry, were you going to ask a question?
No.
I was just going to say. I was just going to say that was the time, I think, for them they started healing, and I think that they did actually resent the time that I didn't spend with them, but after that things got better.
Right. Yeah. Because it just seems to me it's just so natural for us to feel, even under these circumstances, that, and especially when we're young, because we're young and we're immature, and when that attention doesn't come to us. I just was thinking to myself, I never went through anything at all like this, but my mom was busy helping these other young girls that were having trouble, and I remember one day she said to me, "You're being such a brat."